people are going to say that I'm just being a hater. And I don't know why I don't know why you'd think that. What have I ever said on this podcast?
Why would you not have faith in a man that is signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract? If you're going to pay him that much money, you would think he would win the football game.
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
Touchdown! Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvelous. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown. The Don.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
Welcome to the Rivalry Podcast.
What up?
My name is Jace. That's JP. This is your garbage-free college football podcast focused on the Ohio State-Michigan football rivalry. On socials at Rival Pod. This is sports talk for people that love sports talk but don't love all the tangents that sometimes come with it. You don't have to worry about any of that here. The only garbage here is probably the opinions that you're going to hear.
For sure.
We're just two normal dudes who happen to like the complete opposite football team and maybe a little more than the average person.
We'd like to think.
You can determine that for yourself. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Wheel Route is back. By the way, if you're not watching at Rival Pod on YouTube, make sure you do that.
Things are going to be a little different this year. We got a lot of fun stuff going on, but Wheel Route forever will stay the same.
It's just spin that wheel. It's just a good icebreaker.
First one of the season. It feels good to be back.
I'm so excited.
And we don't even have a weird advertisement this year. Ooh, I like this question.
Team to watch out for.
Team to watch out for. Can't obviously say your own team.
Okay. So is this team to watch out for from a national title perspective, or just like a team that could just surprise a lot of people?
A team that you think can just surprise a lot of people.
So I said this on Twitter. I have a dark horse pick for the group of 5 making a New Year's 6 Bowl. I know Tulane is a pretty popular pick after what they did to USC last year. UTSA, the University of Texas at San Antonio, the Roadrunners. This is a low-key, a very good group of 5 team that is going to play the Tulane role this year. They'll end up with a New Year's 6 Bowl out of that group of 5. They've got a great opportunity. They go to Tennessee in late September, so they have the major national upset opportunity, and they play Tulane at the end of the year. They could very easily win 10 games, win their conference, and take that spot that I think a lot of people think Tulane will end up doing again.
It is the first week of the season, and you're saying UTSA is going to win 10 games.
Is it beep beep or meep meep? I don't know.
Meep meep is the Roadrunner.
Whatever. You got the idea. UTSA.
Gracious. Well, mine is probably not as surprising, but I think it's a team.
Is it Ohio State?
Spoiler alert.
Might surprise us, get to 9 wins.
This is a team that they're not going to be in a national championship contention or anything like that, but they are going to be up there for a really, really big bowl game by the end of the year. And I want to start it off by saying they kind of remind me of Michigan a little bit from a couple years ago. Penn State. I think, let me say it.
Oh, my goodness.
Drew Aller reminds me of McCarthy. Coming in, a highly touted, recruited quarterback. There was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of excitement around the offense. There was some good defense going on there. It's a tough environment to play at. Their roadblock is obviously Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, they're not going to beat both of those teams. But
this is, okay, to be clear, the question was a team to watch out for. And you said, well, they're not going to compete for national title. They're ranked 7th in the country. How is that a team that's coming out of nowhere?
Because they're not going to make it. I'm not saying they're coming out of nowhere. I'm just saying this is a team that's going to be very, very, very good.
I didn't know. Georgia. That's my answer. I didn't know we could just pick top 7 teams.
Well, it's better than UTSA, who's not going to win 10 games, by the way, this year.
Speaking of teams not going to win 10 games this year, let's talk Ohio State at Indiana.
Stop it. Okay.
I didn't say which team wasn't going to win 10 games.
Indiana's definitely not going to win even 4 or 5 games.
So we'll start here for me, because I think the most interesting part of this is, as of right now, Ryan Day has talked about 2 quarterbacks, both playing substantial minutes at Indiana in Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Start there for me as you kind of look at this first game of the year.
And there is, as we're recording this podcast, there's actually rumors that today is going to be the day they actually announce a starter, whether it happens or not, whatever.
So if someone gets announced a starter, we're not idiot. Well, not because of that. We're not idiots because of that. We are also
dumb,
okay.
But yes, I have heard nothing all season or all preseason, whatever, about it being Kyle McCord. It almost felt like after the year, the keys were automatically handed to him.
Yeah, that was the perception.
expectation was it's Kyle McCord's job to lose. And then recent weeks, all I've heard is Devin Brown. That has been the only name that I've been hearing coming out of camp. That's on all the message boards that I've read from people that are going to the practices, that are watching things.
Do you think that's just internet hype, or do you think there's something to it?
I don't know. I do. There was a question online over the weekend that I just thought was really good to think about, because I think sometimes it is factual, where I know there was a lot of talk beforehand about Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. being teammates in high school. And there was a question where it was, is Kyle McCord benefiting because he had a generational talent at wide receiver, and that's why he ended up at Ohio State? Or is he genuinely as talented enough to be there?
Sure.
And I think, yes. I think
that's fair.
Yeah, I think it can be yes to both of those questions. Marvin Harrison became what he is now at Ohio State. He wasn't that coming out of high school. His namesake kind of helped build some of that hype up around him. He's obviously a talented receiver, but he grew into that generational talent. I think last year was his real breakout year. And so I do think McCord benefited from that, because who the heck doesn't? But I do think the dude's still got to be a baller in some sense to be able to get something with the quarterback success that Ohio State has had in the past, to be able to kind of catch their eye. There's got to be something there. And so I'm not saying that makes him better than Devin Brown. I'm just saying, does he belong to be on that roster? Absolutely.
The question is not, is Ohio State's quarterback going to be mid?
Yeah, I think
the question is it going to be,
are you going to get a future Braxton Miller, CJ Stroud, Justin
JT
Fields?
Ohio State has had in the last decade plus really strong quarterback play. And there's from the Michigan side, there's a happy big highlighter on it where you go, I don't know what this is going to be. Yeah. And from the rival side, I'm very excited to find out.
Yeah. And from a history point of view, I mean, looking at Ohio State, what you just said, when's the last time that Ohio State has had a quarterback that was mid, where we've had this conversation, which I would say would be way back in mid 2000s with Todd Beckman, when, guess what, still went to the national championship game.
Yeah, so it's not a question of are they going to be, is quarterback play going to be a big issue? Yeah. I think it's a question of, is it a much more human, vulnerable position for Ohio State than years past? And the answer so far seems to be yes.
Yeah, and I think if I'm going, just to answer your question, essentially, I don't think we're going to get a starter. I think what's going to happen is, going into Indiana, Ryan Day's going to come out and say, we still have a competition on our hands. McCord's going to be the starter that's going to come out and go with the first team to start the game. But they're going to split, just like Michigan did last year with McCarthy, where they're going to come out, they're going to have Devin Brown play a few drives. They're going to have McCord do a few drives. They're going to see what ends up working, unless McCord comes out, or whoever he gives the ball to first comes out and is just dominant and completely just destroying, which it's Indiana. Then I think that's kind of going to be their path for the first couple games, at least. I think with Travion Williams, with Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams coming back, I think the game plan is going to be to run it down Indiana's throat, almost the Michigan game plan. They're going to run it, control the clock. They're not going to force their quarterbacks that are basically new to step into a situation where they could have some costly mistakes early. They're going to try to get those nerves out. They're going to try and help them learn the system. They're going to let Travion and Mayan do a bunch of the work. I think at the end of the day, and I thought that this was a funny thing, Indiana has won 6 games in their last 25. 4 of those wins coming against Idaho, and then the other one was Western Kentucky, who Ohio State is going to play in week 3 this year. So 4 of their 6 wins in the past 25 games are against those quality opponents. The thing I am excited about, though, is the defense. They've got a lot of key people returning. You got Jack Sawyer. You got JT, obviously. You have Eichenberg. Steele Chambers is coming back. Denzel Burke. You got Proctor. You have a couple of key transfers.
Is Lathan Ransom coming back?
I knew you were going to say that. I purposely didn't write him down because I didn't want to say it.
Nice.
You have the dude from Ole Miss that transferred in that was on record saying that he's been holding his own against Marvin Harrison, which, what the heck does that even mean?
By the way, you can't just call them JT and that guy from Ole Miss just because you can't pronounce their names.
I wrote it down and I've practiced all weekend, and it's never going to happen. JT Tuimulau, whatever.
Sure,
that's if I say it quick enough, then it makes it seem like I can say it.
You just have to say it with confidence.
And then Lorenzo Styles from Notre Dame, I've heard good things about him, kind of as a multi-tool. He's playing cornerback this year instead of wide receiver that he did at Notre Dame, which is interesting. So I'm a little curious, but I've heard nothing but good stuff for him. Denzel Burke's expected to go to the draft after this year and declare a little bit early. So I'm excited to see that defense come out. I mean, it's not an opponent that's really going to tell you a ton.
That's the beauty. If you are a Buckeye fan, that's the beauty of the way the schedule opens up is, you'd rather have this first game at home.
Yeah.
But you get a conference win out of it right away. You have a couple weeks where you should be able to coast, and then you got that chance to warm up before you actually go into quote real road environment.
Yeah, and I think for Ohio State, you can't wait until that week to name a starter. You've got to almost by Western Kentucky for sure have somebody named.
Oh, yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can go into the Indiana game and that be the final test. And then when you go up the next week in week 2, you've got to almost declare then, because you've got to give that guy the confidence for at least a couple of weeks going in. Ohio State 28.5 point favorites. The over under is 59.5. I think it's going to be worse than that. I've got. Well, not the over-under, but I think it's going to be 42-10 OSU.
Okay.
I think they're still too good offensively. They still have Ibuka. They still have got Marvin Harrison. My boy Cade Stover coming back. Julian Fleming coming back. And honestly, some of the freshmen coming in. Noah Rogers being a stud. Brandon Enos coming in.
Carnell Tate.
Carnell Tate. I would not be surprised to see that young wide receiver group get a lot of playing time recently, and maybe one of them break out.
There's a lot of backups or guys who are trying to fight for a starting spot on the field that are going to get play time over the next 3 weeks.
It feels like you're spoiled because I think, man, whoever the backup quarterback ends up being, that second team of wide receivers still ain't a bad second group of wide receivers to have. So I got 42-10 OSU.
I don't disagree with your score prediction. I've got it a hair closer, 41-17.
I had 17 and I took it away.
I think it's going to take Ohio State a little bit to get clicking in this game. I don't think they're ever going to be in actual danger of losing this game. Or
I can see it being 28-10 at half or something.
I can see some points where I'll get excited because it's a little close near halftime, and then Ohio State will break the game open. So 41-17 on my end for the Buckeyes. I don't think Indiana is going to prove to be much of a problem.
Yeah.
Nor will Youngstown State. And we'll talk Western. We'll talk Western Kentucky when we get there.
Jace is in midseason form already with his garbage opinions. If you want to hear more about garbage opinions, you can follow us on socials. We're new to Instagram now. We got an Instagram this year. You can find us on there on X. Are we calling it Twitter?
Let's call it Twitter.
Whatever that thing. The Bird app. The Bird app. You can find us there.
Okay.
It's at Rival Pod. We also got a Patreon. If you'd like to subscribe to that, get some exclusive content there as well. That is at Rival Pod. And then mostly, if you just want to find it all in one place, theriverradio.com/rivalry. You can find everything you need there. Follow us when we go on the road this year. We got some cool stuff planned. Going to Notre Dame. That's already confirmed. So we've got tons and tons of stuff that's going to be going up there. Again, follow us on all of our social platforms at Rival Pod.
When you hear Mark Price for 3, it probably takes you back to Old Richfield Coliseum, Gund Arena, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hey, this is Aaron from the Mark Price for 3 podcast, and each week Mark and I discuss 3 topics: basketball, coaching, and of course, his faith. Subscribe to the Mark Price for 3 podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, let's talk about the team in maize and blue. Michigan with their highest preseason AP ranking in my lifetime. They're ranked number 2, just behind Georgia. That's their highest ranking since 1991. Highest preseason, to be clear. Highest preseason ranking since 1991. I will just say this, since this is the start of the season, and I feel like I got to preview this a little bit. Expectations for Michigan are sky high.
It almost feels, and you can obviously speak to it more as a Michigan fan. It feels like if you don't, I don't want to say you have to win it, but you almost, in my opinion, you guys have to win it all. You've had 2 years of being in the playoffs.
It's one of those questions where, well, is it a successful season if you don't win a national title? You can absolutely have a successful season and not win the national.
I would still say that.
You could win the Big Ten again. You could beat Ohio State again. Do you have to make it through the first round? I don't know. But I will say that there will be a sense of disappointment on some level if Michigan does not win the national title.
I would say the bare minimum, you have to make it. This would be the third year in a row where the expectation is you make the playoffs. I don't see, even if they lose to Ohio State, I don't see them not making it. And so I think making it isn't good enough now. The talent that you guys have from all aspects of it, from an offensive side with Edwards and Corum, McCarthy getting a full year under his belt after last year being the starter, essentially the full year, but he's got another year. He's shown what he's got. I think he's only going to improve.
Well, he's got a good wide receiver contingent coming back again with Cornelius Johnson, Roman Wilson, Colston Loveland. This team has weapons everywhere. They've got high rankings. They have high expectations. I never love when players will guarantee things. I know Blake Corum talked about, we're going to win the national title. I guarantee it. I get that. I don't get too wrapped up in that stuff. I don't love it, but these are kids just talking. It wasn't trash talking on the field about it, whatever. But I think there's something to be said for when expectations are set that high. And this is the negative Michigan fan in me talking. When expectations are set that high, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting to lose 3 games on this schedule.
And that's not going to happen. But that is one of the things that makes college football so stinking good is there can be those expectations. And Michigan, I would say, even as an OSU guy, is talented enough to win the entire stinking thing. Agreed. But all it takes is one game. You play a Penn State or an Ohio State team, and you lose that one game, it ruins your whole season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and playing Ohio State is, even with the success recently, is never going to be an easy thing.
They're still going to be talented, 100%.
I think the fans, there's a sense in which the fans expect to come into late November and roll. I think the team has confidence, but I don't think that that's a team perception of, they're vulnerable, let's get them. I think it's a confidence that they've built. But beating Ohio State's never going to be easy. Doesn't matter what kind of year either team's having. It's never been easy. Penn State is not going to be easy.
Not going to be
for
fun.
some of the reasons that you already talked about. And frankly, as much as I make fun of Michigan State, playing your rival,
they always get up for it
at your rival. I mean, that's not an easy call. That's just not an easy call. So
playing Rutgers week 4, not an easy call.
Sure, so Michigan has high expectations. Makes me nervous, but then I remember that the year before Jim Harbaugh took over, Michigan went 5-7. And now the expectation is to win a national title or it's a terrible year. I'll take the risk.
Yeah, and I
think I'll take the new standard for Michigan football.
I think that goes for both schools, where I think a lot of Ohio State fans this year are kind of the opposite, where because the big question mark with McCord and Brown, you're losing, and you've had such a history of these guys that are prolific athletes that are coming in. I think that's the opposite expectation, where I think people still expect them to be good, but it's still that, we're not going to make the playoffs and whatever. And I think, yes, you can be disappointed in that, but if Ohio State wins 10 games, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to win every single one.
Well, of course you do.
In my heart of hearts. But those are still, you can look at it. And I would even say this for East Carolina. Last year, they went 8-5. Anytime you get a chance to make a bowl game, that is still a successful season at the end of the day. There are some programs that are built
first.
different.
Ohio State going 6-6 is a successful season.
They are not.
By the way,
I was getting ready to say,
make a bowl game last year? Michigan State. I don't know if you realize this, but Mel Tucker's being paid 10 years on a 10-year, $95 million contract to not make a bowl game.
Yeah, it's not looking good
either.
And Peyton Thorne left, so RIP to them.
Here's what I'm looking for real quick for Michigan against ECU this week. I want to see what Corum looks like. He's supposed to be 95, 100% healthy, somewhere in that range. I want to see, can he still make the cuts, still have the explosiveness? I am interested to see. There's been a lot of talk in camp about Michigan's air attack being a lot more dynamic this year. Michigan's going to always have the Michigan way of doing things, where you're going to use weapons like Corum and Edwards.
Yeah.
Don't sling the ball out because you don't have to.
Yeah.
But to take that next step, a lot of the beat has kind of talked about this, but to take the next step, you're going to have to utilize those weapons. So there's talk that they are going to have not an air raid, but much more of a balanced air attack versus running. And I think that, that's the big step. If they can find a way to do that, McCarthy looks bigger. He looks faster. I'm interested to see him. We'll see a lot of backups over the first few weeks as well.
Yeah.
They'll keep guys healthy. And then the edge rush is a question that a lot of the folks that are maybe closer to the Michigan program in camp saying there's a lot of talent on the defense. Who's going to break out and be the dominant guy? Who's going to be the Aiden Hutchinson? Who's going to be the David Ajabo? Again, I'm paraphrasing some other folks here who have been closer in. So I'm interested to see what that looks like as well. So there's even in these games that teams should win by a butt ton, there's always a lot that you can look at because it can tell you what to expect down the road, even if it doesn't tell you everything. You mentioned ECU won 8 games last year, including their bowl game. They lost a lot of talent.
Oh yeah.
They lost a lot of talent. They're not, they're not the worst team on the schedule. I think the idea that Michigan will just, be up 28-0 at the end of the first quarter, that's not how this works. By the mid-third quarter, Michigan's going to be rolling in this one. I don't
even think it'll take that long.
Based on what I saw last year, though, Michigan would tend to play a very conservative, slow first half, and then they'd come out in the second half and sit on your chest. I kind of expect a lot of the same thing. I think the margin will continue to increase 52-13 at the end of the day. I think Michigan wins this by a ton. It just might be a little uncomfortable getting going.
You give up 13 points?
Well, yeah, like a couple field goals and a touchdown.
Higher up on Michigan than you. I've got 56-3.
That's great. That's great. I welcome that.
I just cannot see
13, but it's the first game of the year, so I figure it's kind of like I figured for Ohio State. It might be a little uncomfortable, kind of slow going at first, and then the good teams are going to do what good teams do.
I think
52-13. What did you have?
I had 56-3. Michigan is going to run it down their throats.
I hope man.
It'll be 35-0 at half easy, and they'll get maybe not 3. Maybe they'll get a touchdown in like the fourth quarter at some point. Yeah,
you've got third string in. Who's to say they don't pick up a touchdown somewhere? Hey, Rivalry Podcast is sponsored by our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. It's nothing worse than having a huge project to tackle, and you're either not sure the guy's doing it or knowledgeable, or if you can trust them. And Elevated Integrity Construction puts both those worries to rest. They are the best in the business, not just in construction, but design as well. And whether or not you can trust them, integrity is literally in their name. Go with integrity. It's elevatedintegrity.com. elevatedintegrity.com. The national stage is an interesting setup this season. A lot of teams that at least think they've got a shot at the national title want to play a little pretender or contender with you.
I'm ready for it.
I'm going to give you a team, and I want you to tell me if they are a pretender or a contender for the national title. Are they just being hyped up? Let's start with the boys in SoCal. USC, contender or pretender? I feel like this is a tough one.
I would say contender. I would lean more solely on Caleb Williams. I think it all depends if he comes back to the Heisman level that we expect. I think maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit. I think he's going to win it for a second time.
False, but okay.
I know who you think, and there's just no possible way.
I was going to say Marvin Harrison.
No, you were not. You would never utter those words. Everybody on this podcast knows that you're a liar. You would never say that, but we're going to cut out what you actually say and use that. So he definitely said Marvin Harrison. So it falls on Caleb Williams.
I agree.
I also think they've just got a relatively easy path. I mean, there's a few games here and there. But
it's the Pac-12.
I think in our week 0 episode, I had them being in the top 4, so I'm not going to shy away from it.
How about LSU? Contender or pretender?
Them.
This is one that I'll tell you I have gone back and forth on a lot.
I think what makes it so hard this year is there are so many questions at quarterback for so many teams. I mean, not LSU. They've got Jaden Daniels coming back, which is huge. He's one of the more experienced, but I mean, and I wrote this in my notes, but Georgia's got a new guy in Carson Beck that's going to be starting. I still have them as a contender because until somebody beats them, I ain't counting them out.
Yep, exactly.
But Alabama, I've got them as a pretender.
Ooh,
I just think
spicy,
dude. Their schedule is tough. They go through a gauntlet. Now they get the lucky break of playing a lot of their tough games at home, but they've got number 11 Texas in week 2, number 22 Ole Miss. These are at home. At number 23 Texas A&M. At home against number 12 Tennessee, and then they play LSU, who's currently ranked number 5. That is a gauntlet. Granted, the rest of their stuff is like Southern Baptist of Utah in the Northeast region. Like it's some random place that you didn't even know exists. But that's a rough couple of games. Granted, a majority of those are
Southern Baptist of the Northeast region,
because it doesn't exist. They played Bishop Sycamore or whoever it was.
Sycamore.
they came back to be Division I. But I just think with a new quarterback coming in after losing Bryce Young, one of those games is going to trip them up to kind of knock them out. I could see Tennessee or LSU beating them this year.
Interesting. I don't know what I think about that yet, but I'll give you two more pretenders that you can toss out right now, and one of them is in the SEC, and one of them is Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Tennessee is a pretender. I don't buy that this team is going to be good. I shouldn't say that they're not going to be good.
You lost Hyatt and you lost Hendon Hooker.
All I'm saying is I've watched Joe Milton play football, and the man can throw it 90 yards.
Yeah.
The man can't hit the broadside of a barn. Like he's got a rocket launcher and the aim of my 3-year-old. Malachi, if you're watching this,
Malachi, I guess.
How did you get on YouTube? I don't buy the Tennessee hype. The other one I don't buy, and I mentioned this in our week 0 episode, is Florida State.
Yeah.
I know they've got talent. It's not a question of do they have talent. I just don't believe in Florida State's execution.
When they play LSU right away.
And that's why LSU is a contender for me, because I think LSU will beat them on, I think I misspoke in the week 0. I think I said Labor Day night. It's Sunday night.
Yeah.
Sunday night leading into Labor Day. LSU, I think, beats Florida State. Now, if Florida State wins that game, I'm going to have to come back and take this all back.
Yeah.
Okay. But I just don't see that happening. I think Florida State gets hyped up. I don't think there's much to it. The outside contender I have is Texas.
I could see it.
The outside contender I have is Texas.
I mean, if they walk away,
Quinn Ewers,
if they walk away after beating Alabama,
I think that's why I guess I agree with you on the Alabama thing as a pretender, because I do think Texas beats them. I know it's in Tuscaloosa.
When I could see LSU,
I think Texas is a better team.
I could see LSU beating them. I think Texas would have won last year
if Ewers stays healthy.
Yeah,
in that game.
If Ewers stays healthy, and so I don't disagree with that at all. I think for my contenders, I've got Michigan, OSU, and Georgia.
Yep.
I am curious. Carson Beck coming in. They still have Brock Bowers. The defense is still good. They're going to be good. They've got their schedule's not crazy. I until somebody beats them, like I said, they're still the champs. Pretenders, I've got Alabama, Florida State, and Clemson. I will never be huge on Clemson since they lost Trevor Lawrence. Something about them. I know they don't play in like the toughest conference in the world, but I just something about them. I'm just not sold. I'm not sold.
Speaking of teams that we're not sold on, we do a little segment called Rutgers to the Rose Bowl, in which we kind of try to feel out, and I think we're doing this on a scale of how many Schianos.
Yeah, how many Greg Schianos?
How confident you are, or what? Not even confidence. What the chances of Rutgers making the Rose Bowl are going to be?
Yeah, which this year would be a semifinal playoff game.
It is a playoff game. So how many Schianos on a scale of 1 to 5 Schianos would you say that Rutgers to the Rose Bowl has right now?
It is 0. Surprise, surprise.
That's not fair.
For getting to the Rose Bowl.
Fair to them.
To getting to the college football.
They haven't lost a game yet.
They haven't won one.
Call it a draw.
So
their chances are still 5 Schianos, though. They haven't lost yet.
Okay, on a technicality, there are 5 Schianos that they could make it to the Rose Bowl.
There it is.
But realistically, it is 0. And I love Rutgers football. But I was looking at their schedule, and
is it not good?
The thing is, they will have to pull some upsets to be able to even make a bowl game. They start off relatively easy. They play Virginia Tech. I go back and forth on if I think that they could do that or not. This will be the first year that we won't have Noah Vidal actually behind center, which is praise the Lord. Gavin Wimsatt should get a full year to start, which I'm actually excited to see how he does. We've been talking about this 4-star quarterback.
There's no by the way. We haven't done anything.
Don't let him fool you.
We haven't done anything with Rutgers football.
Rutgers fans, where are you at? Have my back on this. We've been talking about Gavin Wimsatt since he came to the school. This is his 3rd year now. It's time to suit up or shut up. Yeah. I mean, you've got to go. You got to play the entire year. See what you got out of this kid. They've got a relatively easy schedule early on. Week 4, they play Michigan, dub. But I don't know. They've got to steal some games later on. Who did they play later on? They've got Virginia Tech, I think, week 3. They've got to be able to win games against Michigan State, which I think are doable, and Indiana later on down the road. I also think is a winnable game. But other than that, I mean, they've got to make sure they win at least 2 out of the first 3, start the year 2-2 after the Michigan game.
Just to make a bowl game.
So it's going to be tough.
Okay.
But they could surprise me. Well, they could surprise me. But my expectation.
The Quick Lane Bowl calleth.
Yeah. My quick take on it is Rutgers 4 to 5 wins max. 5 if they pull off an upset against Michigan State or Indiana, which I hate even saying that that's an upset, but it probably is.
It's not a good place to be.
They play Northwestern week 1 and they're 7-point favorites. So
that's probably the largest margin.
It is until we play Wagner. Until we play Wagner week like 4 or week 5 or something like that, and it jumps up to 20 or something, which is bad.
Let's talk our stupid genius upset picks of the week. Call it stupid genius because these upset picks could either be stupid or genius, and only you can. Actually, you can't even decide. The football decides.
Yeah, facts.
Who's your stupid genius upset pick of the week?
I've got South Carolina over number 21 North Carolina.
Okay.
I think, and this is just a weird
Spencer
statement.
Rattler.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler is the better college quarterback to me.
Than Drake May.
Drake May is going to be the better NFL quarterback. I know it's a neutral site, so there's no home field advantage that's really going to matter. Something about it. I just feel like Spencer Rattler has always kind of had a chip since his Oklahoma days. He's going to come out and want to showcase. Wouldn't surprise me if for the first little part of the season he was in the Heisman watch. He'll fall off inevitably, but it wouldn't surprise me if that happens. Well, Same with Drake, though.
The way they ended the year was phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely riding high. I don't think that that's even a crazy pick. Here's my issue with stupid genius is that you make like the sensible, like, hey, this makes sense. Is that this is technically an upset. I took a team who are 14.5-point dogs.
Who?
Friday night, Central Michigan over Michigan State.
I knew you were going to do it the second I saw it. The second I saw it on the schedule, I thought, Jace is going to freaking
People are going to say that I'm just being a hater. And I don't know why I don't know why you'd think that. What have I ever said on this podcast?
Why would you not have faith in a man that is signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract? If you're going to pay him that much money, you would think he would win the football game.
You would think that, wouldn't you? They lost Peyton Thorne. They lost Keon Coleman. I have no faith in this Michigan State team.
They're going to be bad.
This is a dumpster fire, and I cannot wait to watch it. Central Michigan beat Michigan State in East Lansing circa 2000. Oh, I want to say 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. I think it's another one. I think it's an ugly football game. Oh. And I think directional Michigan gets one done.
I love the directional Michigan.
That's not mine. I'm borrowing that. But still, a directional Michigan is going to beat Michigan State. CMU, fire up chips. Fire up chips.
Wow.
I don't know if...
I would not be upset about that.
Is that... Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Central Michigan over Michigan State is my stupid genius upset pick of the week. You got any closing thoughts for us? Anything that we missed? Anything you didn't talk about?
Man, it just feels good to be back.
Doesn't though?
It feels great to be back. It feels good. I want to reiterate again, this year going to look a little different. We're on Patreon. We've got a new Instagram going out at Rival Pod again. Tons and tons of stuff that's going to be happening on all of those platforms, especially on the road. Definitely want to stay tuned for the Notre Dame game.
Yep. Excited about that one.
The stuff we're going to be grabbing there is going to be sick.
Fun. And the podcast doesn't continue without the support of businesses, generous friends like you. So do consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. We've got some fun perks. We've got some prize drawings. Like this.
Jace was supposed to wear. We had talked numerous times about.
I forgot.
Week 1, you've got to wear the rivalry T-shirt to showcase the new merch.
We've also got.
And then,
go ahead.
Typical Michigan fan doesn't listen.
But anyway, you could have that T-shirt and you could actually wear it like you're supposed to.
Do we show the back? And look, you made the flag mad, and now it wouldn't be the rivalry podcast.
This is why we need Patreon support so we can fix this dang flag.
Dude, I got to show the back, right?
Show the back
I got to show the back.
Yeah, so you can pick up.
I'm gonna go here.
You can pick up that shirt again at Rival Pod on YouTube. You're missing out if you're not watching there. We've also got brand new rivalry stickers you can put on your little Nalgene water bottle on your laptop. They're so new, we don't even have our own yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he wouldn't even display it if he had it, apparently.
So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social media at Rival Pod. Consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Football's back, folks.
Let's go. Go Bucks.
Go Blue.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter at RivalPod for live tweets, score predictions, contests, and more. And make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Wednesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.